Now, I got the most interesting text recently from a client that I've been coaching called Bob. Not his real name, by the way, for confidentiality purposes, but he did come to me for anxiety and mindset issues. He wanted to have coaching on his business and also on life in general because it really needed an upgrade. So he sent me a text, and the text said, "Guess what?" And I was just thinking, no idea what. And he said, "I finally did it." And I was thinking, did what? And then I got a picture which explained everything. It was a picture of the most glorious beach. And he said, "I'm here." Now this made sense because Bob had come to me struggling with anxiety, and it was showing up, unfortunately, on his travels. That's one of the places where he began to have panic attacks. And it came from when he was overworking on a trip, and he began to not feel well on a flight, led to a bit of an anxiety and possibly a panic attack. And his brain then said, "Never again." It really shocked him. So a test to see if our work would be effective together was to see if I could help get him to finally get on a plane, go abroad, and just enjoy himself. So hence the text. Now, Bob had tested me. He said, "If you can get me abroad, you would be a miracle worker," because traditional therapy has failed. He's even been hypnotized. That has failed. He's been to courses. He's done the self-help books, but that all has failed. And that's not a surprise, to be fair, because everything was over-focusing on his thoughts and on his past, and therefore it was all eggs in one basket. He needed a holistic approach, and that is where we began. Now, Bob couldn't see a future where he wasn't anxiety-free, so this was very depressing for him. But the reality was this, and this is what we had to sit down and discuss together, was that your body, Bob, is simply responding to how you're treating it. In fact, anxiety is completely normal for how you're forcing yourself to live. And therefore, your mind and body, or spirit, however you want to see it, is sending you the most powerful message through anxiety that you have to change course, Bob. You can't continue as you are because it is completely unsustainable. So Bob had this negative perception of anxiety, which made it much worse. It was really impacting his confidence as a business owner, and it's affecting his profits, it's affecting his home life. He was struggling to be present with his family. He was struggling to go out socially because his world was getting smaller and smaller. So he felt like a failure. He felt so ashamed, and he was seeing himself as someone who was no longer good enough, that he had to be fixed somehow. He wanted me to fix him. And it was really important that we moved on from quite an outdated view of anxiety. So I really did drill it into him that anxiety was happening for him, not to him. So he's not a victim to it. It was there to empower him. It was there to help him enhance his life in ways he could not imagine. And he would have to begin to create the experiences where he would begin to build his confidence in this type of approach, because it really goes against a lot of what he had read about anxiety and how you've really got to just change the way that you think for you to become anxiety free. And he was failing at that quite miserably. And we had to end the obsession with trying to fix himself. We had to end the obsession of seeing himself as someone who was broken. And that if he could just find that magical bullet, then he would suddenly be free to build the life that he wanted. We had to start building that life now, which would be incredibly healing for his anxiety. So with Bob changing his relationship with anxiety, I began to teach him some breathwork techniques. My favorite one, by the way, is just a simple and then a long extended exhale. Do that 5 to 6 times and it will bring your nervous system back onto baseline. And these hacks are useful. They're often over-focused on social media as a cure for anxiety, and they're not, because the reality is this, and whilst they're very useful in calming down your nervous system, it's no point turning down the fire alarm if you're not going to put out the fire. So whilst I taught Bob how to relax, how to calm himself down, he used a lot of my meditations for that, which was, very short ones at the beginning. He didn't think he was much of a meditator, thought he was a bit ADHD and couldn't focus. But with simple 5-minute meditations, he got into the habit and then began to extend the time from his own choice because he was enjoying how peaceful it was. But by calming down his nervous system, it became much easier for him to begin to think much more clearly. Look at, where is this anxiety coming from? What is pushing Bob's nervous system into that survival state, into flight or fight, so that he experiences anxiety and panic attacks? Where is it coming from? So we looked at all areas of his life and began to piece together from his past experiences and his incredible drive for success, which was unfortunate in regards to more about him, how he could do things by himself rather than who could help him. So we had to work around that so that he was delegating more, let's just say, to other people around him to help his business become more successful while he could do the bits that he really loved. So it's things like that, past trauma, his diet, his lifestyle, his sleeping habits. We looked at all of that and began to tidy those things up. Some of them were good, some of them needed just a bit more tweaking to help his nervous system be reduced in pressure as much as possible. And I got Bob to focus on 4 areas which are really important. So to become committed in mind, body, heart, and purpose. And investing in your mind, so doing mindset coaching, that was one thing, knowledge, meditation, journaling, getting to know yourself, very important for investing in the mind. Investing in the body, got Bob to exercise. I think he took up tennis. But that investment in his body was also calming down that overactive nervous system. And also investing in his heart. He became more kinder, more compassionate towards himself, and developing stronger relationships with the most important people in his life, his family, being more present with them. His friends who he'd kind of neglected because he'd been so busy. And then we looked at his purpose. And his job, brilliantly, was fulfilling an element of that. But he was so busy micromanaging and doing other things within it. The stuff that he was really good at, he didn't get to do enough of. And again, the pressure from that really does impact your nervous system. And all of the things that were happening in all different areas that were out of balance were just putting way too much pressure on his mind and body, which naturally rebelled and let him know with anxiety. And no amount of drink, no amount of food or avoidance and distraction would prevent anxiety from getting stronger for him to finally get the message and to reach out and find support. And bless him, he did try. He was very good at, seeking out help from different sources. Unfortunately, it was the type of help that was outdated and kept him over-focusing on his thoughts and on his mind. But no one was asking him about the rest of his life, what was going on with his diet, with his hydration, with his exercise, all things that have an impact. So that was a big thing for us to, make those small little changes. And by the way, he wasn't perfect, but it did make a difference, especially when he said, I slept all night last night. instead of waking up at 4 a.m. and staring at the ceiling, wondering when I'm going to get back to sleep and panicking about how tired I'm going to be the next day. I think what I'm about to tell you had one of the biggest impacts on Bob, his mindset, and the way that he experienced anxiety, success, and his reality. Now, it might sound a bit woo-woo, but one of the criteria of working with me is to be just open to the idea that you are part of something much bigger than yourself. And even if you're not aware of that or you have any beliefs in that, I think the psychology around this is absolutely fascinating anyway. But I connected Bob to a future version of him already living his ideal life. Now, there are sort of theories that there's infinite versions of us in different universes living different lives, and the ones that you focus on, you draw into your reality. No idea if that's true. But by focusing on a version of you that has what you want already, yes, experiencing it, they are living it. And I did this with Bob, so I reminded him that he is a manifesting powerhouse and that his state of being is his manifesting magnet. Because there's a very powerful quote by Neville Goddard: you don't attract what you want in life, you attract what you are. And just by beginning to entertain that idea, we could begin to move away from the idea that Bob needed fixing, it was a failure and a problem, to focusing on what did Bob want? What was Bob in his future already doing or had done to be anxiety free, to have the most successful and wonderful life? So we connected Bob to his future self, and I coached Bob into looking at what he was doing more of, what he was doing less of, what his personal life was like in all areas, what his business life was like. The number one thing I think is really important with your future self is to focus on your health, because without that, I don't think our future looks that rosy. So again, it was, looking at the whole of his life in his future and coaching him through what would his future self be experiencing. And then the important part of this was to begin to embody that future self as much as possible right now. What habits could he adopt? What small steps could he take to be more like his future self? And he'd already begun to do that with the changes he was making in mind, body, heart, and purpose. So again, it was just, more momentum going forward. But what was interesting, and I think really did motivate him a bit more, was when we focused on what he really wanted to happen with his business, for him to move away from doing the stuff that he shouldn't be doing to do more of the stuff that he should, and to have now room and the space to think about or be questioned and coached on, where did you want your business to go? Where do you want to take it? What do you really want from this one precious life of yours? And the more we began to focus on that, the weird synchronicities began to kick in, the weird opportunities that began to pop out of nowhere, the conversations, the networking. Again, he was just somehow part of something magical happening for himself and his business. And of course, that got very exciting for him, which of course at the same time is energizing, but still taking pressure off of his nervous system, because he's now focusing more on what he wanted to experience instead of focusing on what he didn't. And instead of seeing anxiety as this enemy now, he really was embracing the fact that, it was there to help him enhance his life in all of those different areas. And, one of the other things that was, that he'll admit, and doesn't mind me talking about, because we've talked about me doing this video, that he also began to, through the meditations on my Patreon channel, my clients join that as there's collections that they can just easily follow. I'll put the link down in the show notes as well. But he began to experience a very strong sense of peace and stillness and calm, began to experience more the truth of who he was. And I call it super consciousness, which he kind of liked that term, and began to get a sense of he could lead more from this place instead of letting his ego dominate and lead his life the way that it kind of always had done. He didn't realize that he wasn't his thoughts, he wasn't his feelings. He didn't realize that he was the space, the peace, the stillness, the consciousness that could look at all of those sorts of things that his mind was creating. It's like a carnival of madness. It's like a Netflix of craziness inside our minds. And we feel drawn to act it out as if it's reality. But the reality is, it's just stuff our mind is creating. We can just observe it and choose to do something else instead. We don't have to watch what the Netflix of the mind comes up with. This is all part and parcel of him beginning to build that successful life. And one thing that I did focus on him with was being abroad with his wife, with his kids, on a beach, having a lovely time. This is why I'm doing this message today, is to give you a full sense of if you're struggling with anxiety or your mindset, is to begin to look at it as not just something that is against you, that's hurting you. And of course it is, it's painful, it's suffering. But begin to maybe possibly explore the idea that it's for you and that it's important that you listen to its message and begin to work with it, just as Bob did. And if you could be open to the idea of exploring a future you that's on a timeline, already experiencing your ideal life, could you then begin to embody that now? And the more you embody it, the more you begin to let go of what's no longer needed, what new habits will you adopt, what old habits will you drop, what would help you enhance your life, instead of waiting for your anxiety to go so that you can then change your life, do it the other way around. The more you begin to create the life you love and see it as a glorious adventure, that is more healing than any antidepressant, than any medication, than anything else, or therapy, if you like, or even coaching on anxiety. Just beginning to make your life the way that you really want it to be. And if you don't know what you really want it to be like, keep asking yourself, what do I really want? How do I really want to live? This is one life, this is it. As grim as it sounds, but we're all in the waiting line to leave at some point. We don't know where we are in the queue. So in the meantime, let's make this life a glorious adventure. Well, we can't live our life as if it's the last day. That would be exhausting. But we could drop the apathy, couldn't we? We could make it, again, something where we appreciate with gratitude, with joy, with passion and love what we get to experience, and turn it into, move away from the victim mindset, the scarcity mindsets, to something that's more empowered, where we're the creator, and each day we get to do something brand new and exciting if we choose to. I know it's hard because the brain always wants to go back to doing its old stuff, because that's what the ego does. It's about survival, it's about protection and comfort zones, which are rarely comfortable. So that's the power of your mind. And I want to say to you, you have the most incredible mind. You've watched this video this far. I think that's quite the feat. So think about how far you've got in life. Think about all the things you've come through, all the challenges you've faced, everything that you've experienced to get to where you are today. And in the only moment that exists in the universe, you're hearing, you can begin to connect with another version of you, experiencing what it is that you truly want in life. Not what you think you want, there is a difference. What you truly want in life. And the more you connect with that version of you, the more authentic you'll feel, the more aligned you feel, the more the universe seems to flow and work with you. It's always doing that. It's always doing that. It's always working with you. There's an energy, a change, a shift in flow when you're doing something that's more aligned. So I wanted to give you hope. This is what this video is all about, that there is a future you may be living the life you want. The more you connect, the more you can embody that person, the more you become them. You can move on from anxiety, not from just by trying to change the way you think, but by changing all the aspects of your life as much as you possibly can within your circumstances to reduce pressure on your nervous system and give it a chance to heal. So If you're interested in becoming more anxiety free and changing your mindset for the next few months or for 2025, listen to my podcast, the Mindset Change Podcast. Subscribe to this channel. If you want to work on a deeper level, come and talk to me on my Patreon channel. It's a community. I'll put the link below. There are collections, so much help available for you. You can talk to like-minded people. You get daily inspirational voice notes from me to keep you motivated, to keep you moving forward, because it's really easy when you're stressed and tired or not well to develop an amnesia about how powerful you are. I hope you have found this video really helpful. And if you have any comments, please let me know down below what you think. Are you questioning my approach with Bob? Any questions you have? And if there's anything, again, you want to ask or let me know about in regards to what's helped you, let me know down below. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Have a lovely day.